Welcome to Louisville's finest, a talent showcase. Troy Johnson, co-host and co-producer. The whole focus is on the independent black filmmaker with no apologies. And I believe here in Louisville, Kentucky, people have the gift and the talent to produce and write and direct fantastic documentaries, fantastic films, whether it be short films, feature films, animation, and come together collectively and network to inspire others to pursue their goals, their careers, whether it be independent, whether it keep their day jobs, night jobs. And I believe that if we continue to do this Black cinema discussion, which we started several years ago, people will continue to believe in that we can continue to produce and direct right here in Louisville, Kentucky, as well as all over the nation and international. And so that being said, I would like you to enjoy Black Cinema Discussion 2015.
Yes, when I watch the Oscars, I always get upset because I'm like, well, they worked hard on that film. You know, why aren't they getting nominated? Why are we always excluded from Best Picture? You know, that really upsets me. So if we just keep pressing forward and supporting each other, it's a double-edged sword. It's not just us, but we have to support each other. A lot of people are not supporting each other. They find hate and something negative to say for it before they even give the project a chance, and that has to stop. So we have to support ourselves in order for Hollywood to take us more seriously in itself. And that's all I have to say.
I found that with me when I wanted to get started, the things I wanted, projects that I wanted to do, I had to build a team of people that believed in me, believed in what my vision. And so that was key for me, because there's times when you're not sure you're going the right direction, there's times you're discouraged, you're not getting paid, things like that. So many things come into play. So having that really strong supportive team was key for me. They kept me going. I got people on my team that were more experienced than me, people that I could learn from, that were probably on the level I was on, and then also people I wanted to help. I want to pull them along with their project. So I think having a strong team of people was really big key for me.
Thank you all. One of the things that you want to think about as we look at the genre of the cinema is that, excuse me, we've been around with the cinema process. According to Henry Louis Gates' African Diaspora, the first black produced film happened around 1918. And every so often within that particular industry, we've seen spikes, we've seen lows. Most of you all sitting in this audience, you're fairly young, you probably have not heard of or vaguely heard of Robert Townsend. Robert Townsend basically produced his first independent film, Hollywood Shuffle, which was a parody of how blacks and minorities are treated in Hollywood. And he actually started that as an independent film producer and financed that movie on the basis of credit cards. Yeah. Now, one of the things with that, and as I listened to the discussion going on by a distinguished panel here, that I thought was interesting in the film and was the fact that when his character, who was an aspiring actor, talked to an established black actor who was starring in a black exploitation film at the time about the character he had been given to play in the movie, and he asked this established actor, well, what do you think about my character? And the response was, does your character die? And then Townsend's character said, no, then it's a good part. And what I think what I'm hearing from the panel is that, yes, you're limited in the sense of what you're going to be allowed to do in film and television. And the mentality that this gentleman had in the movie was that as long as you had a presence on film, it was okay. But once your scene and your part ended, then there was nothing left for you to look forward to. But you look at Hollywood as an entity unto itself. What we can do is take some lessons from what's happened in the past. I'm sure a lot of y'all have been to movies over the course of your years. You've probably seen pictures that were come through the studio called Universal Artists. And many of you probably do not know the history of Universal Artists. Back during the 1920s, 1930s, when the film industry first started taking off, if you signed with a movie company, whether it was Paramount, whether it was King Features or whoever, you essentially were the property of their studio. And the contracts that you signed made you essentially their chattel property. Well, there were two big stars at the time, Douglas Fairbanks Jr. and Mary Pickford, who were husband and wife. They decided they did not like that particular setup. So what they did was they talked to a number of their actor friends in Hollywood and said, look, we can continue going on the way things are going, or else we can branch off and do something on our own. So they got a number of their friends together, Charlie Chaplin and some of the others, and created this movie, the studio called United Artists.
D.W. Griffith was in it too.
And and so basically the whole idea was we wanted to break the chains of slavery within the assembly industry. And to go along, we've seen again, besides Townsend, other notable artists that have come along, and we've seen spikes within the entertainment industry. I came along at a time when Roots had come into fashion, and that was a time when people thought, well, this is going to break that door wide open for black actors, producers, writers, and whoever in Hollywood because it was such a box office smash. Now we've got the Roots version, I guess, if you will, in terms of a successful black program for this generation with Empire. And I'd like to then ask the question, one of the things that we have to think about, as I've already talked about, is this idea of the images that we portray. When you look at a program like Empire, you have people who look at it and say it is a negative portrayal of the African American community, particularly in that particular type of industry. Then you have those who said it's a good example of storytelling. And one of the things that we have to think about as part of this discussion today is what do we want to produce and put out for the consumption of not only the African American community, but for the community worldwide. One of the things you point out about being in a global society now, you have to realize that with the cinema, by the time a movie is finally wrapped or produced in this country, pretty much thanks to international piracy, that movie's already been available in China and other parts of the world before it either has a release date here in the United States. And unfortunately, while the world is trying to fight against that, there are those people who are going to see their self-interest by stealing from artists, producers, and whomever, being greater than the ethical thing to do. But still, as we look at what's going on in the cinema world today, whether it's television or movies, where are we going to go? As you all become gradually more and more successful in your careers, and as you look at your peers and your colleagues in the entertainment industry, what do you think, and again, this is just personally from your own perspective, is going to be more important? The product or the paycheck?
Product. Because you got to get the product to get the paycheck.
Product has to be, yes, it has to be product.
Yeah.
Product first.
The product's going to open more doors for you if it's right.
And that's the key thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I was getting to. If you have a good product, and it goes back to what Art Bar is talking about, you may have a great script, you may have a great documentary, you may have a great short story that you want to get out to the mass media and the mainstream public. But if you don't control the right or the ability to distribute what you have, then it becomes an issue. Nobody's going to get to see it. So then there will be those people who, as we've heard and been mentioned throughout this particular industry, who have simply created film, television programs, acting roles that have essentially been labeled as sellouts because it was an opportunity for them to make a quick buck. And so what I was asking, and what you all have wonderfully answered for me, is as you go along with your own particular careers, what is it going to be? It's going to be about the product you put out, or it's going to be about the paycheck. And yes, I can see that the better the product is going to be, the paycheck will eventually come along. We have seen Tyler Perry, we've seen others over recent years who have come out with things, whether it's been a book, whether it's been a short story, whether it's been something of other types of entertainment or forms of information that has gained a mass appeal. And the more I think that we begin to utilize the internet and other forms of technology, that information and those things will get out to the mass public. And then, as you said, yes, Hollywood will come knocking on your door. I'd like to now take this portion of the discussion and turn it out to the audience. And I know there's probably questions and issues that you all want to ask, and I'd like to give you all ample time to do that. Yes, sir.
I have one question based on some comments from Roy and from Opera, but anybody can answer. Are there, thinking globally, what are some of the, and disregarding Hollywood at all costs if possible, as far as distribution is concerned, what are the practical opportunities of exploiting the internet better, and even Nollywood, the Nigerian and African, maybe even the Caribbean movie markets for distribution of our films, networking and distribution wise?
That's a good question, man. That's a real good question. Internet. If you are an aspiring filmmaker, put your stuff up on the internet. Create your own channel. You can create a channel right now. All right. You can leave right now. In fact, you can do it right here. All right. You can shoot us right now and create a channel. Put it up, right?
Followers.
You can create a channel on YouTube. All right, and put up. I think they keep extending the amount of time that you can actually.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, so it used to be 15 minutes now.
It's 20 and now it's.
And then if you apply and you become a consistent producer on there, they give you unlimited use of it. I'm telling you that will take you a long way. You know, especially if you are, looking at a business model. All right, use whatever you can for free. To get your piece out there, right? And then, or if it's not about your piece, it's to demonstrate your skills, because you never know who you're going to run into. I was invited to participate in the African American Film Festival in Hong Kong in 1995, the same time that the Million Man March was happening, and I found myself in Hong Kong with Carl Franklin. He had just come out with Devil in the Blue Dress. All right. Who was it? Kathy Sandler. She did A Question of Color. Actually, a good film. If you want to know about image abuse, good film. Kathy Sandler did this. It's called A Question of Color. And it's about how she got upset when she realized how she was treated better than her sister, who was darker complected. The film looks at color complexion within the black community. All right. Brilliant film. We showed that at the festival. But I was saying all this to say that when I was there, networking with all these people, Julie Dash, the Daughters of the Dust, she was there. Kathy, I'm trying to remember all these people's names. But the point is that you want to be ready to network with people, because you never know when people are going to need, somebody. They may call you in to be an associate producer or whatever, So whatever your strengths are, you want to highlight that and use the internet to do that. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all of those things are things that drive people to where you want to go. And Twitter, by the way, I call it the cattle product. All right, and I don't mean to suggest that people are cattle. I'm just using that as a metaphor. The issue is that if you want a mass group of people to go somewhere and you have a big following, Twitter is an excellent tool to do that, because you just tweet out and then you push them to where it is you want to go. All right, so the foundation is your website, your Facebook page, all of those areas. So the internet definitely, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Oh yeah, well, I think he covered most of it. If there was anything that I would add to that, is that social networking is an incredibly big piece right now. We're trying to work through that ourselves, because it's changed dramatically within the last year. And so we're finding out we're having to spend a lot more time than we had initially anticipated with it. And that in itself can become a full-time job, honestly. If you want to build up your social networks in a way that you have constant engagement with your followers or whatever the case is, then you got to put in the work. And you have to understand how those platforms work, because Facebook works differently than Twitter in terms of what you need to be posting. My son over here, he's an Instagram pro, and so I'm learning from him because he's 14 years old and he has about 3,000 followers on his Instagram account so far. So we're kind of trying to keep everything in house, because there are people that will charge you a fee for those things. But like he said, it's free. take the time out, read the books, the materials that can help you understand those platforms, and to know what to post, and to know how to engage with those people.
Let me just address a Nollywood question. For those that don't understand, Nollywood is like one of the fastest growing film entities in the world. It's based in Nigeria, all right? But again, if you want to understand why it's successful, you got to look at the business model. And the business model is, again, an ensemble of people that are coming together to produce, all right? How many have heard of the Negro Ensemble? Mm-hmm. All right, based in New York, Woody King, all right? Now, a lot of people don't know this, but Denzel, Sam Jackson, Felicia Rashad, any known black actor that's in television and film came through the Negro Ensemble in New York. So in other words, those actors were stage actors first before they were film acting. Because film acting is somewhat difficult because you have to perform didactically. It's out of context in a lot of ways. Whereas when you're performing in a play, it's a different kind of situation. So most of them cut their teeth in the Negro Ensemble. And then they propelled to Hollywood, all right, and became known. I used to go, I saw Sam when he was nobody, performing plays and stuff like that. And I knew then that he had a bright future. So Nollywood is doing the same thing. These are known television actors, known theatrical performers, traditional performers within Nigeria that, and that sells too, because when that person's in the film, people buy the movie. The movie may not even be good, but they're buying it because that particular person's in it, right? So again, we have to look at the business model. We can do the same thing here. We just have to have a sense of clarity about what it is and sense of purpose of what it is we're doing here. And I think we could be quite successful as well.
I want to get back to something that was addressed earlier when the discussion started about the direction of the black film industry and has things improved from then to now. One thing I think a lot has improved, within the black film industry from way back then when with, Oscar Micheaux and Spencer Williams and all those other guys from the Lincoln Motion Picture Company, which was a black motion picture company back then. At that time, we were in control of our destinies and we were in control of what we were putting out there for our audience. We're getting some of that back now because we are starting to get in control of what we put out to our audience. Mainly, we know what our people want to see and so forth. Because that was a time, of course, in the 70s during the black exploitation era, we were not in control of our images. Right. We weren't in control of what we put out there, because they were letting anybody direct these movies, produce these movies, and be in these movies, and the movies just got worse and worse and worse. The actors are the ones that suffered in that industry because a lot of those actors, black actors, were classically trained, theatrically trained, and they got stuck in this pigeonhole of putting these negative images out because the gatekeepers were the ones that were saying, okay, well, this is what makes money, this is what puts bucks in the buckets and butts in the seats, And when that era ended, when Jaws came out and Star Wars came out, the industry said, well, there's no need for the black actor anymore because, in my opinion, the black actor saved Hollywood because they didn't want to see big budget movie musicals anymore. We had civil rights going on, we had the Vietnam War going on. The audience changed. The younger audience wanted to see something else, So that's why when those Hollywood movies were losing money and not making money, they pushed these black actors to the forefront, And one time, when I was working as a resident actor and instructor at Caribou House in Cleveland, where I'm from, I was interviewed by the local news there the day after Halle and Denzel won their Oscars for Training Day in Marshall Ball. And the interviewer asked me, what do you think the industry is going to do now for black actors? And what do you think the outcome of last night's ceremony is going to do for black actors? I told them that hopefully it will force the industry to start taking black actors and actresses more seriously. And I think that has happened, you know, in time. We kind of got into a slight exploitation era again in the early 90s, kind of. Everybody wanted to escape from the hood. Everybody wanted to, and then that one guy getting ready to go to college always got shot before.
The one's trying to make it out.
So we got back into that for a minute because we had to do what we had to do in those days to get a play on film.
The blaxploitation was intentionally developed because we had taken over the streets of this country. The blaxploitation films was a way of creating catharsis for black people. At the same time the blaxploitations were coming out, massive repression was taking place throughout the African American communities all over the country. So Superfly, all right? Superfly served the same purpose as New Jack City. So people would ask, well, what do you mean by that? Well, Superfly was what introduced cocaine to the African American community here in the United States. All right, if you remember, Superfly had an ounce around his neck, all right, with the Coke spoon. The ounce, right? Ounce is supposed to be a sacred symbol, and it was a Coke spoon. Okay, you got to look at the symbolism. You got to break it down. So how is that connected to New Jack City? New Jack City was the film that promoted crack cocaine to our community. All right? Now, when Superfly came out, the Vietnam War was weaning down. So therefore, they could no longer smuggle heroin in dead soldiers' bodies anymore. I'm not making this up. All right? So they had to come up with a new drug of choice. Because before cocaine hit the black community, cocaine was a rich man's high. Superfly overnight turned that into our high. So when we talk about the blaxploitation film, it was an insidious way of one pacifying us from the 50s and 60s struggle. All right, the film literally pacifies us. All right, you had Pam Grier, you had, and the thing, it was cathartic because we was kicking white people's butt. That was unheard of before blaxploitation. Yeah. To see a black man hit a white man and get away with it. They did that on purpose because that's the only way that they was going to be able to tame us, because we was taking over the streets. Okay? So you gotta, when I say he who controls the image controls the mind, I'm serious about that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm going to quote something he said. He said, that's something you said, I'll see if I can get it right. He said, we know what the black community want to see. And I seen some people up there now, I don't want to say everybody. So my question to you is what he said. Do you know what the black community wants to see? He said, we know, which infers a fact.
I think you could go different routes with that because for me, I feel like our people are not educated enough. So I just feel like for me, I just went on with the things I felt that they needed to see, that they do not see on TV. They're not being told in the textbook. They're not, just feed them something that, for me, learning more about the history gave me my fuel. Because a lot of us don't know our history. And some of the things we're being told are not the whole truth.
Right.
So for me, I came from truth, and that's my basis, was telling the truth and telling them something they did not know, or maybe knew but didn't know enough.
Right.
That's kind of what I meant on that.
Okay, let me ask this question, I'll be more specific. Somebody brought up empire. Is empire the truth?
That don't matter, man. See, the thing is, to go back to your question. Because first of all, what I'm saying.
Then what he's saying over there. What he's saying over there doesn't matter.
Look, what I'm saying is this. To go back to your question, all right? Black people, as far as I'm concerned, want to see themselves. They want to see their stories. They want to be represented in a righteous way. We have suffered years and years of image abuse. It's been over and over, not only in film, in books, in plays, on the radio. We have been abused, all right? So in terms of what he said, we know what they want. For me, that means they want to see themselves, they want to hear their stories, all right? So when Spike Lee comes out with School Days and it becomes popular, Hollywood says, oh, you know, why? Because he's speaking to his peeps in his movie, all right? It's what you call FUBU, for us, by us, all right? So the thing that we have to understand is, and you're right, there's a lot of education that has to go on, but if you break it down to its lowest common denominator, it really comes down to black people want to see themselves in the films. All right?
Know about, particularly for the director slasher, how do you guys go about getting your funding? You know, do you go and propose to a bank or a potential investor, or what your story is about? Do you hope and pray that they invest in it or something like that? How do you go about getting your funding for your projects?
Well, you can go about several ways. You can get sponsors. You can have you go on the internet and get different funding, crowdfunding. It's great. There's Indiegogo, different things like that. Or you can try to. What I did personally, I came out of pocket for my movie. So I did it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I came out of pocket.
Oh, you came out of pocket.
Yeah, for my movie. So I roughed it. So
if you do something positive, you can go to companies and try to get funding.
That's right.
For them, that's a tax write-off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Especially now.
Right. And that's going back what you said, Nate, about the legislature now having passed that 30% revenue measure. What they've done is they've looked at the model in Atlanta. One of the reasons why Tyler Perry and Atlanta now has simply become the mecca for Hollywood, in particular Black Hollywood, is that the Georgia legislature years ago developed a tax revenue plan with the entertainment industry, where if those production companies would come to Atlanta in particular and shoot television shows, movies, and what have you, then the state got a kickback in terms of taxes, and they allowed for the productions company to save money in terms of the production costs. And so I forget when this measure first came up with the state legislature here, they talked about all of the billions that the state of Georgia has collected over the last 5 to 10 years as a result of this piece of legislation. And there was some contention about wanting to do it here because of not being sure, I guess, whether or not you could get the same type of scenario to happen here in Kentucky. But you think about it, you look at production companies in Hollywood for the last 20, 25 years, they've taken their act on the road. Vancouver has been a hot spot in terms of television movie production. New Zealand with Renaissance production. You know, and I loved Hercules and Xena, but it was always interesting when I found out that those particular programs were being produced in New Zealand. And the reason why they were done in New Zealand because the cost of production is a whole lot cheaper than it was here in the United States. But if we can make a situation where we have inroads financially to where it becomes lucrative for production companies, whether it's Hollywood, whether it's Paris, or whoever wants to come to Louisville, Lexington, so on and so forth, to produce their television programs and movies, then we as a community are going to benefit for it in the long run, because again, opportunities for acting, writing, directing, creating documentaries. And I'm glad somebody brought up animation, because that's another whole new genre that we have yet to break into. And
I want to ask you a question about, you were saying about funding. A lot of times it is out of pocket, but you can sometimes find venture capital companies here. There are places here in Louisville that are getting money.
Yes, right.
So I would say a first resource would be start with your SBA or your court. Go to your SCORE office and ask them who, because they know who's saying yes to projects like, you know, small business type projects.